Welcome to Closing the Brand Gap, a podcast about branding, creativity, and the space between the quality of a business and the way it shows up in the world. I'm Elizabeth Gunter, founder of Creative Well Design. Over the years, working with founders, I started noticing a pattern. Great businesses evolve faster than their brands do. The expertise grows, the work becomes more sophisticated, the reputation strengthens. But the brand representing that work often stays stuck in an earlier version of the company. This podcast explores how that gap appears and how businesses begin closing it through brand alignment. There's an interesting difference between attracting attention and creating an experience that people remember. A business can generate traffic, it can get clicks and run ads, it can create awareness, but none of these things guarantee that people will actually connect with the experience once they arrive. And that's where I think branding becomes much more interesting, because branding isn't just about attracting attention, it's about shaping perception and experience. If you've listened to a few of these episodes of this podcast, you know how much I love a good metaphor, and may have heard me refer to the opera house as a metaphor in the past, but let me give you another layer of that, because I've been thinking about branding lately through the metaphor of the opera house in a different way. So imagine buying a ticket to a world-class orchestra performance. You know, the kind that people travel across the world to attend to it. You know, the audience arrives expecting something really extraordinary. And, you know, the opera house itself is beautiful and the musicians are incredibly talented. Every instrument is tuned to perfection and everything appears ready. But then the performance begins and something feels off. And, you know, the timing is just disconnected a little and the sections aren't aligning. The emotion just never fully builds like it normally would. And so people begin like shifting in their seats, and some quietly leave before the performance is even over. And not because the musicians lack talent, but because the experience lacked alignment. Didn't have that powerful effect that it could have had. And there's the brand parallel to that. So businesses experience the same problem all the time. The website exists and the marketing exists and the social media exists. The messaging exists. You know, each piece may even be good individually, but when those pieces don't work together cohesively, the experience becomes feeling fragmented, disconnected. And people notice that disconnect immediately, you know, even if they can't really fully explain why. And that's often where the brand gap appears. I've seen it happen a lot. I've seen it happen in businesses where maybe each department handles their piece separately and they hire different designers for each thing, and everybody can have a brand identity manual for the visuals and it all looks the same, but there's just something that's off because that alignment's not there. They're not all working together. So how do you work together? The conductor. So now imagine a conductor walks onto the stage and suddenly the experience changes. The musicians begin moving together, the timing aligns, and the emotion builds, right? The audience becomes immersed in the performance. They forget where they are. And by the end of it, the audience rises for a standing ovation. What changed? Not the talent and not the instruments, the alignment. That's what brand strategy does. It aligns the different parts of a business so that they can create a cohesive experience instead of a disconnected noise. And so to take that a step further, marketing fills the seats. One of the ideas I keep coming back to is this: marketing fills the seats. Brand alignment earns the standing ovation. Marketing can attract attention. It can get people through the door, but branding determines how the experience feels once they arrive. And people remember experiences far longer than ads. So then there's the standing ovation test. I think businesses can ask themselves a very simple question. And so if someone experienced our business from beginning to end, what would it earn a standing ovation? Would the experience feel intentional? Would the messaging align with the quality of the work? And would the customer experience reflect the promises made by the marketing? Would people leave wanting to tell others about it? That's the standing ovation test. So now let's think about where businesses lose alignment. What's interesting is that businesses rarely lose alignment all at once. It happens gradually. And that's the thing, like it doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually. The business evolves and maybe new services are added and the company grows and marketing changes, because of promoting different things. The founder's vision matures even along the way, but the overall the experience becomes inconsistent because the orchestra slowly drifts out of sync, and eventually the business begins feeling fragmented instead of intentional. Certain areas of the business grow more than others, and we often refer to this as growing funny, right? Like we didn't plan for this growth, and so now we're trying to figure out how to reconfigure things, and we realize we're limited because we didn't plan for this growth. And so why does that matter though? Because people experience brands emotionally long before they analyze them logically. They feel clarity, they feel confidence, they feel inconsistency too. And when a business feels aligned, trust builds naturally. The experience becomes memorable. Not because the company is trying harder to impress people, but because everything just works together cohesively. So, the businesses people remember most rarely succeed because of one isolated thing. It's usually because the entire experience feels aligned. The messaging, the visuals, the service, the reputation, the feeling. Everything supports everything else. And that's what earns the standing ovation. And that's what closing the brand gap is really about. Thanks for listening to Closing the Brand Gap. If this idea resonates with you, you can subscribe for future conversations about branding, creativity, and the process of aligning a brand with the reality of a growing business. We're going to get into it. And if you'd like to learn more about my work with founders, you can visit our website at creativewelldesign.com. Until next time, great businesses evolve faster than their brands do. Closing that gap is where alignment begins.